If you walked into your own coffee shop and no one recognized you, what would you do if you overheard your staff talking about wanting to spit in a customer's cup? Have you ever returned to a place so familiar that you could recall the scent of old wood, the warmth of yellow lights, or even the laughter of familiar faces with your eyes closed, only to realize it's no longer the same? That Saturday morning, the sky wasn't raining, but carried an oddly heavy gloom. Ethan Duval parked across the street, standing still for a moment as he looked at the cafe sign that read, "Morning Flame," the third location in the chain his father had worked tirelessly to build. Back then, this place used to have lines of customers every weekend, the hiss of the espresso machine blending with lively chatter to create an atmosphere so distinct no one who visited could forget it. But now, only a few patrons lingered. A pair of elderly customers had just stepped out, visibly upset, muttering something like, "Wasted our whole morning." Ethan gripped the steering wheel tighter, his chest tightening with unease. He adjusted his baseball cap, pulled the frayed hood of his grey hoodie low over his face. It had been a long time since he last visited this place, not since his father passed and Ethan officially became CEO of the entire Morning Flame chain. In recent years, he had been buried in meetings, growth strategies, supplier negotiations. He could barely remember the names of branch managers, let alone the baristas. But then complaints started popping up online about cold service, long wait times, coffee that tasted flat and soulless. Ethan had asked the regional manager, a man named Ronald, and received only vague reassurances. "It's just a transitional phase. The customers will adjust." The words were smooth, but they didn't sit right. Something was wrong, deeply wrong, and it wasn't showing up in any report. So he decided to return, not as a CEO, but as a casual customer. Posing as a student, waking up after an all-nighter, he grew a beard, wore thick glasses, scuffed shoes, and no one here had ever seen him in person. As he stepped inside, the smell of burnt espresso hit him instantly. The music was too loud for a morning crowd. The register counter had dried syrup stuck to its surface. Ethan stood behind a woman trying to calm a crying baby while fishing through her wallet. The platinum blonde barista, hair loosely tied, earbuds tucked under her apron, glanced briefly and then resumed tending to her half-painted nails. "Next," she said, without a hint of emotion. Ethan ordered a large black coffee. No greeting, no eye contact. He paid in cash, took the lukewarm drink, and walked toward a dimly lit corner near the hallway leading to the staff room, a space he might not have been allowed to sit in. But that was where he chose to be. Because today, he wasn't just there to drink coffee. He was there to listen, and if necessary, to change everything. The sip of black coffee Ethan had just taken made him frown slightly. Not because of the bold bitterness of the dark roast, but because of its lukewarm indifference, its stale aftertaste, as if it had been brewed without care. He sat in a shadowed corner, one hand resting on the rough wooden table, his eyes silently observing. The cafe had only one other customer, absorbed in their phone and clearly unimpressed by the atmosphere. Everything here, the lighting, the music, the posture of the staff, was missing something intangible, something his father used to speak of every time he talked about this place. "Son, you're not just selling coffee here. You're creating a space where people feel respected." Ethan tilted his head slightly. Voices were coming from the hallway behind the bar, drifting through a slightly ajar door. The staff break area. A familiar female voice rang out, sharp and full of irritation. If one more person asks about oat milk, I swear I'm just going to spit in their cup. A male voice burst out laughing. Yesterday, some guy complained the coffee was weak. I told him, "You're ordering a drip and expecting strong. Go home and brew toilet water." Both laughed loudly. Ethan remained still, his breath held. He recognized the female voice. It was Nina, the platinum blonde barista who had poured his coffee. The male voice, if he guessed right, belonged to Derek, the tall, lanky guy also wearing a morning flame apron. She continued, and her next words made Ethan's chest tighten. "I don't care anymore. This place is rotting. We're understaffed. No one's going to fire us. We're the ones running this dump." Derek added, "I told Ronald not to waste time training that new girl. She's slow, always late to her shift. I told him straight up, if she doesn't improve, cut her hours." Ethan gripped his cup tightly. He hadn't even known there was a new hire. And what sent chills down his spine was that Ronald, the regional manager, was letting staff make personnel decisions. That wasn't just negligence. That was abandonment. That was how a brand lost its soul. Ethan rose, slowly walking toward the counter, just as Nina and Derek emerged from the hallway. They froze when they saw the random student staring straight at them, his gaze piercing into the rot at the core of something once meaningful. Derek spoke up, slightly flustered. "Can we help you with something, sir?" Ethan didn't answer. He turned away and walked out of the cafe, his steps heavy. Back in his car, he sat in silence for several minutes, fingers tapping lightly on the steering wheel as if trying to keep his anger from erupting. Instead of acting rashly, Ethan pulled out his phone and called the one person he still trusted in the system, Madeline, his executive assistant. "I need the full employee list from Branch 3, their work schedule, and find out when the new hire's next shift is. I need to meet her." Madeline paused. "Is something wrong?" Ethan closed his eyes for a second. "Not yet," he replied, "but it's about to be." The next morning, before the sun had fully burned away the mist on the car windows, Ethan was already standing behind the cafe. Leaning against the cold brick wall, he looked out toward the staff parking lot, his gaze no longer carrying the curiosity of a stranger, but the silence of a man preparing to cut away a deeply rooted tumor. According to the schedule Madeline had sent, the opening shift that morning would be staffed by 3 people, the 2 he had encountered the day before, and a new girl he had never met, Lana Kim. At 6:24 a.m., an old Toyota pulled up near the dumpster. The door opened, and a young woman stepped out. Her nylon jacket was lightly wrinkled, and she hugged a worn tote bag to her side. She pulled a knit beanie down over her ears, paused for a few seconds in front of the back door, as if silently bracing herself, then slid the key into the lock and quietly stepped inside. Ethan followed, keeping just enough distance. As the door was about to close, he blocked it with his foot and stepped in behind her. She turned sharply, startled. "Oh, sorry, I thought I locked it," she said. Ethan gave a small smile and pulled down his hoodie. "No worries. I'm shadowing the shift today. Name's Kane," he said, offering his hand. Lana hesitated for a second, then shook it. "Lana, today's my first morning shift," she said, leading him down a narrow hallway where the burnt smell from the toaster lingered from the night before. "As long as you're not late, you'll be fine," Lana said with a tired smile. "Morning shifts are usually rough, especially for new people." The break room in the back was small and stuffy, with only 2 chipped metal lockers, a folding table, and an old box of donuts. Lana removed her jacket and tied on an apron, her movements practiced as if she'd done it many times. Yet Ethan noticed the guarded way she moved, as though always prepared for criticism. "You'll probably start on dishwashing or restocking. Everyone new does," she said, without complaint, just acceptance. "How do you find this place?" Ethan asked, pretending to be friendly. Lana shrugged as she adjusted her apron. "It's okay. I need the hours. I'm still in school, so I can work whenever." Their conversation was cut short by the sound of footsteps. The door swung open, and Derek appeared, headphones around his neck, chewing gum, eyes sweeping over both of them. "Early, huh?" he muttered, not even looking at Lana, then turned to Ethan. "What was it? Kane? New guy? Good. You're on dishes. Stay out of the way." Without waiting for a reply, Derek disappeared toward the counter. Ethan tilted his head toward Lana. "Is he always like that?" Lana gave a strained smile. "Pretty much. As long as you keep quiet, things stay fine." But Ethan knew well. The things that stay quiet for too long are usually the ones about to explode. He adjusted his apron and followed her out to the main counter. He had never washed dishes in his life, but today, he wasn't here to manage. He was here to witness firsthand how people were being crushed, and to find a way to free them from the inside out. The kitchen behind the bar in the early morning was its own kind of chaos. Not loud, not frantic, but tangled in a strangely systematic way. Ethan stood at the dishwashing station, under dim yellow fluorescent lights that did little to hide the moldy stains clinging to the stainless steel sink. The glass rack sat unevenly, pooling water whenever anyone placed a cup down. A milk container, still coated with thin, curdled yogurt, was handed over by Lana. "This is from last night. I don't know why no one cleaned it," she said softly. Ethan didn't respond, but inside, he was recording every detail, like a prosecutor silently gathering evidence. At the bar, Mira, the platinum blonde barista from yesterday, was adjusting the grinder, her face pinched as if the world owed her a few more hours of sleep. Lana greeted her with a quiet "morning," but Mira didn't reply. Derek swept past, barking orders like thunder. "Lana, front counter. Kane, trash run, and wipe those pastry trays. They look like a morgue." He didn't look at anyone as he spoke, just pointed like everyone was a mindless piece on a game board. By 7:10, customers started to arrive. The cafe wasn't packed yet, but mobile orders came flooding in. Ethan remained at the sink, watching as Lana served customers, all while Derek hovered, correcting every move. "Say the name clearer. Your hands shaking. No sleeve on a hot cup. Let's see if you cry when we get sued." Lana didn't protest, just nodded and redid the task. She moved like a student who knew survival mattered more than expression. A middle-aged woman snapped, "I said no cream. Did you not hear me?" Lana stammered an apology, reaching to remake the cup, but Derek snatched it and dumped it straight into the sink, coffee splashing onto Ethan's apron. "Start over," he said, flashing a half smile to the customer. "Apologies. She's new." Lana stood, frozen, her hand tightening around the milk jug. Ethan walked over quietly. "You didn't do anything wrong," he said. Lana looked at him, gratitude flashing in her eyes, but she said nothing. By 8 a.m., the cafe was nearly full. Mira began skipping heat sleeves for hot drinks. Customer names were misspelled. Lattes were short on milk. A man picked up a cappuccino, frowned. "This is just a weak latte." Mira shrugged. "That's what a cappuccino is." He smirked. "No, it's not. I've been drinking them since 2002. Mira turned away, smirking. Derek called out, "Just tell them it's a dry latte. They can't tell the difference anyway." Ethan heard it all and said nothing. Everything seemed to function on the surface, But inside, rot was spreading fast, and Lana was the only one still holding on, quiet and steady, like a lone leaf in a windstorm. As she handed a cup to a customer, her hand trembled slightly. Ethan asked softly, "Do you need a break?" She shook her head. "No, I'm just afraid I'll mess up. I really need this job." Ethan froze. Not because of what she said, but because of how she said it. That voice belonged to countless young people out there, pushing themselves to exhaustion just to be seen as barely enough. But Ethan knew this wasn't just about her anymore. It was the story of an entire system rotting from within, and he was the only one who could cut it out. That afternoon, when the cafe had started to quiet down, Ethan didn't return to the office or his hotel as he usually did. Instead, he sat alone in a public library, just 2 blocks from the cafe. The space was still, the warm yellow glow of reading lamps softly lighting the cream-colored folder in front of him. The folder contained the past 3 weeks of shift schedules, annotated by Madeline. Morning shifts are consistently short by at least 2 staff. Logan, Derek's real name, submitted the schedule instead of the manager. Ronald approved it without verifying the roster. All the evidence is here. Ethan wasn't shocked, just quietly exhaled. This carelessness was no longer isolated. It was a clear symptom of a system corroded by complacency. At that moment, the library door opened. Lana walked in. She was still wearing the same jacket from that morning, holding her backpack close, her eyes scanning the room until she spotted him by the window. Ethan stood. "Thank you for coming." She sat down, her expression a mix of caution and curiosity. "You asked me here. For what, exactly?" Ethan slid a cup of tea toward her. "Chamomile. I wasn't sure what you liked, so I guessed." Lana nodded slightly, wrapping her hands around the cup as if seeking warmth in a cold day. "Your name, it's not Kane, is it?" Ethan nodded. "I'm Ethan Duval. I own Morning Flame." Silence settled for a few seconds. Lana straightened up, her lips parting as if to say something, but no words came. Ethan didn't let the tension linger. "I went undercover to see things for myself. I couldn't trust the reports anymore. And you're the reason I want to fix everything." She looked at him, still clearly unsure. "So, I'm not getting fired?" Ethan let out a soft chuckle. "On the contrary, you're the reason that cafe is still standing today. I want you to tell me everything, without anyone watching over you, without fear. You can tell the truth." Lana remained silent. Then, like a dam breaking, she spoke. About Logan telling her she was replaceable at any moment. About Mira shirking responsibility and shifting blame. About how she had to learn procedures from outdated videos because no one trained her. And about the daily feeling of walking into the cafe like she was fighting just to earn basic respect. Ethan listened, never interrupting, never judging. He opened the folder. "Do you see this? They deliberately scheduled you in double shifts. Mira opened and closed shifts for 3 weeks straight. No one reviewed anything." Lana stared at the page, her face first relaxing, then tightening with frustration. "So, they arranged everything just to control it?" Ethan nodded. "Not anymore. I've called the regional manager. The cafe will close for 3 days. We're starting over, retraining, rehiring, cleaning house." Lana's eyes widened. "You really mean it?" Ethan looked at her. "I don't patch broken things. I dismantle and rebuild, and I need you there." She She looked down at the tea, something rising in her chest she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. If that's the case, I'll give it everything I've got. Ethan smiled. You won't have to do it alone. This time, you'll have a team behind you. The next morning, before the clock struck 7, a sign had already been posted on the glass door of Morning Flame's third branch, temporarily closed for internal training. See you again on Monday. Passers-by glanced at it and frowned slightly. Inside, a temporary operations team was moving in new pastry shelves, replacing the sink, checking the wiring, and rearranging the entire espresso bar. Ethan stood at the register counter in a charcoal grey blazer, his beard neatly trimmed, no longer hidden behind fake glasses. Across the room, Lana, now acting shift lead, was reviewing the new task chart. She didn't speak much or act authoritative, but every move was steady, every instruction clear. At 7:32, the door opened. Mira walked in. She froze as she sensed the shift in atmosphere, her eyes landing on the unfamiliar staff scrubbing the walls, replacing syrup bottles, and Ethan. She blinked twice. Wait, you're the owner? Ethan nodded, stepping out from behind the counter. Yes. You're Mira, right? You're still on the employee roster, and today marks a fresh start. If you want to stay on, you'll need to participate in retraining. Mira looked around, then slowly nodded. And if I say no? That's fine, Ethan replied calmly. You're free to leave, no hard feelings. But if you choose to stay, things will follow a new path, one of transparency, discipline, and respect. Mira said nothing more, but silently made her way to the back to change into her apron. Ethan needed no further confirmation. She had made her choice. At 7:48, the door opened again. Logan walked in, still wearing the same frayed hoodie. He paused for a second, his eyes immediately finding Lana, who was now checking the inventory. Receipts. What's all this? He growled. Ethan stepped forward, placing himself between them. Training. Restructuring. You're welcome to participate if you want. Logan scoffed. You can't just... I can, Ethan interrupted. I'm the owner of this company, and I've let you run wild for far too long. Logan turned to Lana, his voice tightening. You told him everything? Lana didn't flinch. I didn't need to. You told on yourself. Logan narrowed his eyes and turned back to Ethan. I did what I had to do to keep this place running. Ethan stood firm. You submitted fake schedules, ignored hygiene protocols, bullied new staff, and treated employees like your property. That's not management. That's abuse. Logan exhaled sharply, turned away. So I'm fired? Ethan nodded. I'll process 2 weeks' pay. After that, your system access will be revoked. Logan didn't respond. He simply nodded once, then walked out the door. No farewell. No one stopped him. In the end, Mira, who had once stayed silent under Logan's lead, approached Ethan. I didn't realize. It had gotten that bad. I just thought he had authority. Ethan replied softly. No one has authority without accountability. If you stay, that will change. Mira looked over at Lana, guiding a new team member near the pastry case. I'm not sure I'm leadership material, she admitted. Ethan smiled. You don't have to lead. You just have to show up the right way, every day. At exactly 9 a.m., the remaining staff had all arrived. A few were familiar faces. Others had been temporarily transferred from other branches to support the transition. No one spoke loudly. No one showed a clear attitude. But in their eyes lingered a shared uncertainty. They were waiting to see where the day would lead. Ethan stepped back behind the counter, letting Lana stand in front of the task board. She held a clipboard, her voice clear, but not harsh. Today we start from scratch. If anyone is unsure why things are changing, I'll be direct. Because the old way no longer works. Because we deserve to work in a place without tension, without fear, without pretense. No one interrupted. The atmosphere was heavy, but not hostile. Ethan stood behind, only observing. Lana moved with each person to their station, explaining the new procedures, from machine sanitation and ingredient storage to how to handle faulty orders. She didn't lecture. She simply demonstrated, asked for input, and let them participate. When Mira instinctively reached for her phone under the counter, Lana gently placed a hand on her shoulder. All we need is your full attention for 8 hours. Keep your phone until break time, all right? Mira hesitated for a second, then nodded, slightly embarrassed. But Ethan could see clearly the change had begun. Not from rules, but from trust. A new employee asked, "Why change the cleaning cloth every 4 hours? What's wrong with the old one?" Lana didn't judge. She simply opened the machine and pointed at the residue buildup. "If you were the customer, would you want your drink made with this?" Heads nodded. They weren't just listening. They were understanding. By noon, the kitchen had been scrubbed clean. The steaming basket had a fresh cloth lining, and the fridge no longer held expired bottles. In the back corner, a newly installed stainless steel sink gleamed, replacing the one that used to leak dirty water into the trash. Ethan and Lana stood side by side, reviewing the updated shift chart. She pointed at 2 empty slots on Saturday's midday shift. "If we don't stagger break times, we'll be short-staffed during the busiest hours." Ethan nodded. "Good. Make a note. You're seeing the big picture, not just your own tasks. That's the first step toward leadership." Lana smiled, though not fully confident. "I just want things to run smoothly." Ethan replied, "Sometimes that's all a good leader needs to do." He pulled a permission card from his pocket. "You'll have access to the scheduling system from now on. A senior training team will work with you for 2 weeks. After that, you'll be able to propose your own staffing plan." "I want to hear it from you." Lana stood frozen, her lips parted. "Why me?" Ethan looked at her for a long moment and answered slowly but firmly. "Because you didn't walk away when everything was falling apart. And because you did the right thing without being told to." She said nothing more, only stood there, clutching the clipboard, as if it were the first time someone had entrusted her with the soul of the very job she had worked so hard to keep. At 5 p.m., the support team completed the final touches, posting the new policy sign, arranging the display counter, and wiping down all the glass windows. Ethan dimmed the lights, letting natural light pour in, soft but bright enough to reflect every corner of the café, now clean to the point where silhouettes shimmered in the glass. Lana double-checked the payment terminal, set a new passcode, and cross-checked everything with the checklist. Mira, saying little, took the initiative to wipe down the counters and mix ingredients for the next morning's prep. A part-time employee named Tyler, usually quiet since his first day, volunteered to take the opening shift next week. Ethan looked at each of them. No speech was needed. The silence itself was the clearest sign that trust was returning. As everyone started to head out, Ethan called Lana over. He pulled out a set of keys, the front door, the cash drawer, and the stockroom. "You'll open tomorrow," he said. Lana took them with both hands, nodding without hesitation. "If anything feels off, no matter how small, call me." She tucked the keys into her apron pocket and tilted her head slightly. "And you?" You won't be here tomorrow." Ethan smiled softly and glanced toward the glass doors. "I'll be watching from farther away, because starting today, this place no longer needs someone to shield it. It just needs someone who's willing to step up." Lana watched him walk to his car. Before he left, Ethan turned back slowly. "Do you know why my father always sat at the counter when he was alive?" Lana shook her head. "Because he said, trust isn't built in an office. It's built at the counter, one customer at a time. I forgot that for a while. But now, I remember." Night fell. Inside the cafe, the espresso machine gleamed under warm lights. On the wall, an old wooden plaque bore the founder's handwritten words, "No one is too small to make a difference." Lana stood at the door, her hand resting gently on the glass. Behind her was not just a coffee shop, but a new beginning, rebuilt on the simplest foundation of all: kindness. In a business environment, culture is not created from rule books, but from how people treat each other when no one is watching. Ethan didn't choose mass layoffs or finger-pointing. He chose to start again from the counter, where respect must be restored one greeting, one cup of coffee at a time. If you believe that any organization can be healed from within, like this video and subscribe to the channel to help spread stories of responsibility and courage. And don't forget to leave a comment with the phrase, "truly worthy," if you also believe that kindness is never too small.